Back to another day of live streaming our game currently called Dream Machine. My name is Joshua Blair and I'm the CEO and founder of Icebreaker Games. Thank you guys for joining us. So, diving into this project, yesterday was a pretty big day. We got a lot of stuff done. But the big one was we set up the interaction with the Dream Machine here. And I'm going to go ahead and just preview that real quick just for you guys. But now we can go up to the actual Dream Machine right here. And then when I press E, we now see all the different levels that we can do. And each one of these levels is now created and hooked up to the load buttons. So technically we can go into any of these levels here. And then we even have a playable character now for each one of those levels. It's not necessarily going to be the character that we keep throughout this entire process. But at least we have something like kind of like a placeholder there so we can actually do something with it. If I back out, the Dream Machine closes back up and we can continue to walk around and do stuff throughout the bunker. And just to show you kind of what this looks like, if we wanted to load this scene here, I would just click on this button. We don't have currently a loading screen, so to speak, which is something we will work on in the future. So it's actually loading right now. This is actually a pretty big scene, but you can see here we go. We have it loaded. And now we're playing this character here, which is kind of a politician. And we can walk around this scene. Nothing's really set up as far as being able to exit out, pause the game, or go back to the menu from these scenes. But we are able to get into there and play around. So today, I really wanted to work on taking those same concepts that we just did with the Dream Machine itself, and I want to create a way for the player now to leave the bunker. And the way we're going to do this is, like I said, very similar to the Dream Machine itself. We're going to be able to go over to this door. And I'm thinking about putting like some kind of switch, like kind of like a locking mechanism that you have to click first. Then you would be able to open the door. Maybe there's going to be some alarm system that goes off, like, hey, you're about to leave. Excuse me. and then right about here, we're going to make it so the character can walk up to a certain extent. But then we're going to have just a zone or a trigger that's going to load the apocalyptic scene again. So I will go ahead and take that apocalyptic scene, which is currently level 10, and I'm going to duplicate that because it's going to be completely separate from level 10. Level 10 is the apocalyptic scene, but it's going to have a lot more players, or not really players, NPCs, and there's going to be a little bit less chaos going on with this particular level. That when the player leaves the bunker, he's going to be able to go and experience basically a zombie apocalypse. So that's kind of what I'm thinking right now. But we will fine tune these scenes as we go. So I'm not too worried about it right now. We're, like I said, just setting up placeholders at this point. I'm going to rename this. It's no longer a dream level. The index is 12 though. And I'm going to just say, we can just call it Apo City for Apocalypse City. And I'm also going to name this 1 because we are going to have a second version of this. But in order to truly know why, you guys have to go to the website, the Dream Machine website, and take a look and read through the details and find out what that twist is going to be and why we need a second one of those cities. So that being said, I do want to take this door here, and we're going to move this into the dynamic empty game object that we have all the interactables in. Because now I want to keep this thing separate. You notice right here, these are all of the interactables that we have so far. And now I'm just adding this other one. And you notice we do have the door itself, and we also have this cool rotatable, I don't even know what these things are called again. But it's basically just a door handle that we'll be able to rotate with a cool animation. So we have all of that. I'm going to go ahead and create a box collider for these. And this is going to be our trigger. But I only need it for the door itself. So I'm going to shrink that down, but expand this out a little bit. So now technically we could walk into this trigger and press a button and potentially open this door. So we do have an actual open door FSM or Playmaker script that we were using before. And doesn't look like we renamed it, which is fine. The name isn't too important, but I'm just gonna call this door trigger. And we have another one back over here. I'll call that door triggers. And so now that we have that, I'm just going to copy this FSM and I'm going to put it on the root of this door here. And let's go ahead and edit this. Now we are missing the animations, which is fine. We'll do that. Pretty much everything else is going to stay the same. Now there is going to be a caveat to this, and I'll get into it here shortly, but we're only going to be able to open this door once we do some type of unlock mechanism over on the left side of the door. But we'll get into that. So for now, let's go ahead and create an animation here. I'm going to go into my animations folder, and I'm just going to call it bunker door, and bunker door open. Sounds good. So we'll go into record, and once again, I always seem to do this at about 2 seconds. It just seems like the sweet spot. In general, I usually have a longer or more of a pause for opening, and then a really quick 1 second closing animation. But so we're going to want to first, we're going to want to do this. We're going to want to do a rotation of the handle here. So let's actually do that at about 1 second here. And I'm not sure which way in reality this is supposed to go, whether it's supposed to go clockwise or counterclockwise. The way I always envision it is clockwise would be to close and counterclockwise would be to open. I'm not too sure exactly. I'm definitely would love to hear from you guys if that's truly the case or not. And I also don't know how many times this thing needs to rotate. So let's just give it a little bit of a rotation there, and we can preview that. You can see it's pretty fast. That's good. And then at about another second in, actually, one thing we're going to need to do too here is we're going to need to make sure that the position of the door itself is still at this position at 1 second. We don't want the door to start opening up before we do that rotation of the handle. So I'm going to add the property here, and I'm going to add the transform, and we'll just add the position here. So up until that point, we just have the rotation of the handle, and then at about 2 seconds, we're going to now say, now the door needs to open up. And I'm not sure, obviously we want to avoid any clipping that just kind of looks ridiculous. I'm not sure how far we can open this door, what I'm trying to get at. But we don't want it in the way either. I think something like that should be fine. So now if we take a look at what this looks like, we should get a rotation, and you can see the door is opening before the rotation finishes. We got to fine tune that as well. So we turn off preview. We have this transform here. And then if we go to the next one, we have another set. You can see it's already starting to move here, and that's where the issue is going to be. So take a look at this. I think this is the issue here. If we look at this first keyframe here, here's our transform, and then if we get to here, we have already rotated 60 degrees. Problem is we do not want to rotate 60 degrees here yet, and then at the last one we want to go a full 120. So let's take a look at this now. So you can see if we go we don't need to record anymore. If we go all the way back and we push play, you can see we have a rotation and then the door comes open. So I think that is perfect. I will go ahead and go into this animation here, and I'm gonna take off the loop here. Now, also, just like all the other animations that we were working on, I'm gonna go ahead and set up the the animator controller. Very similar to these other ones that we've done. Now, you are still going to be able to close the door, I think. There is no handle on here. But let's just say the player does want to close it. We may give them that option. I don't know. Maybe you close it while you're in the inside. That's something we can adjust to. So I'm going to put this as close, and let's go ahead and set up those triggers. Very similar to what we've already done before in other videos. So this one would be our open trigger. This would be our close trigger. And this would just go back to the idle state here. We got our perfect little triangle here. And so now if we look back at the Playmaker FSM, when we do these triggers here, that's going to work pretty good. Now, just if we're going to let the player close it, I do think maybe they can only close it from front. So, I do believe my keyboard has just all of a sudden stopped working. All right, keyboard is now working. So if we take a look at this trigger, what we're doing at, you can see the trigger comes out in the front of the door, but there is nothing really available behind the door. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking. Player can open the door and then close it from the inside, but you wouldn't be able to do anything from this side. I think that's fine. And fairly realistic. If we go ahead and play test this currently, we run all the way over to this door. You can see it says push E to close. So we did forget to do one key feature here. The value of is open is false, currently closed, and we forgot to check that. Now if we run back over to here, it says press E to open. You can see that cool rotation and the door open. Now just to kind of look around here, I wanted to see, what this looks like. I know the camera, I wish the camera needs to zoom in more on the player when we kind of clip outside. That's something we're gonna have to address at some point. And then you can see our jumping is still pretty messed up, but we can't even walk up these stairs. I think that has to do with the way that the mesh collider is on these things. And I'm not sure if I want to spend the time to fix every single, we'd have to put a box collider on every single one of these stairs. And that's just going to be really time consuming. It might be something we want to do or have to do at some point, but as of right now, I don't think we should. So what I would do is I would create another, maybe just do a cube here. And this is gonna essentially be another trigger. And so once the player goes into this trigger, it's gonna ask like, hey, do you want to leave the bunker? And if you accept, you now get to leave. And we can turn off this mesh render. And so now you can see we have this collider, and we'll mark that as trigger. All right. I am curious where that there is. This I'm gonna rename. We'll call it sleeve bunker, and then I'll probably just rename it to a trigger, even though it is a cube. But all we're really using it for is a trigger. I'll go ahead and I'll throw that. For now, I'll just throw it into the dynamics. It's not really, I wouldn't consider it an interactable. Although you are going to have some type of input. You're going to say, yes, I want to leave, or no, I don't. So now we can technically open this door. That trigger right here does nothing yet, but we will have that set up too. But right now, I'd love to set up that other lock concept. The what do you call it? Some kind of system where we have to do it before we can unlock this door. So if you remember right, there were things like this that we had available in the package here. And so I'm thinking if we just look up kind of a button prefab here. Of course, we're going to get a bunch of craziness. But here's the one there. We got a bunch of concepts, but something like this might work really well. Yeah. So what we can do is kind of throw this on the door. The door area. I think I'm going to increase the size a little bit. And put it into the wall just a little bit. Unfortunately, these types of buttons, whenever you can get ones that the button actually can move in and out, I think that looks a little bit better with the interactions. We'd basically be able to push that button and you could see it go in. I don't really think it's just it's not necessarily life or death to have that feature. I mean, it's not too important, but it would have been nice to have it in this particular game. So I will say, normally you're not going to be able to just go and leave the bunker, right? You have to finish all 10 levels before you do. So at some point, I am going to say, I'm going to make it so you cannot click on this button. And maybe it's not even illuminated, but then eventually you beat all 10 levels, and the father's going to tell you, okay, I think you're ready. You can leave the bunker now. Now he's going to say, hey, I unlocked the switch. So you would then be able to come over here, press this button, and then that's going to unlock this trigger. So we do need an FSM on this. We're also going to need a box collider trigger on this. Take a look. Something to this extent should be fine. I don't know, maybe it's a little too far out. I think that should be good. And then this is going to be very similar to kind of like the radio trigger FSM that we created. There's really not going to be an animation. But we do want it to do some stuff, so to speak. So we're going to say press E to push button. We don't need these other concepts. We also don't need a Boolean value here. I'm going to change the name of this to pressed. And so now, basically, if the player is in the zone, we can also change the name of this. Well, before we do that, so once the player is in the zone, that's going to register this trigger. So then it's going to say, hey, you can press E to push the button. If the player just turns around and walks away, that's going to go down this turn off route here, which is going to just deactivate that text and send you back to this idle state. But if the player does press the button, what happens? And that's where we're going to turn on. Go ahead and lock this FSM. We're going to turn on this one's trigger. So let's say temporarily it's going to be turned off. And so then we can just set the property on this and set it enabled. Now, once he presses that button, does it reset? My question is, if he opens the door the very first time, does he have to press this button ever again? And I'm thinking no. I'm thinking even though he shuts the door or whatever, he shouldn't have to press the button every single time. I think just that very first time he does it, if you remember right, I really want this to be exaggerated, to be dramatic. Ugh, got a sneeze coming. I really want it to be just this epic part of the storyline is finally leaving the bunker. So once he presses that button and it activates the other trigger, we're going to essentially just deactivate this. So we can do another set property and turn this off. And so now this is never going to be on again. So we don't even need this transition. So it's going to look something like this. Now this box collider is turned off. If we go back to that button, you can see the door itself I can't do anything with. If I come close to the button, let's press E to push the button. If I press E, we forgot to deactivate the text. And that's why we do playtesting immediately. You never know, right? So part of the pressed concept is we will need to deactivate that text. And let's do it early because anything after this last set property isn't going to actually fire, because once it turns itself off, nothing else is going to. Let's try that again. We come back, can't do anything with the door. We push the button. Now you can see we can't push the button anymore. And let's see. It doesn't appear, even though that we turned this back on. It might be a way of just the way that Unity handles the situation. Unlock this. Yeah, the FSM, for some reason, on the door trigger was turned off. Did we not set that up properly? Let's take a look. And no, we did not. We turned off the wrong FSM. Let's fix that. So it's this button trigger set property enabled, turned off. There we go. Let's try this again. Press the button. Now we can open the door. And we can close the door. Kinda. I know what we did. So on the animator here for this door close, we forgot to change this to -1. Now it should work. Press E. E opens. If we press E to close, closes, and we can do this. Okay, we don't need to press the button. I like it. All right. So another thing is, like I said, I want this concept to be a little dramatic. We're not going to really get into it because, of course, we're going to want some music, and we're going to want some really cool sounds. Set an alarm. Maybe we can do the alarm. Maybe we can even do the bunker door opening and shutting. We'll have to look on Artlist. That's what I use for all my sound effects. But maybe we can do that kind of stuff. But for now, let's get some lighting going from this button here. And I'm thinking, let's just add it here. We'll do a light, and it's not going to be a spotlight. I think it's going to be a point light. Move it out. I'm going to also mimic the darker color here. I don't know if we need too much range. We can get away with 3. We might be able to get away with an intensity of 1. Basically, we're going to toggle this on and off, make it seem like the light is blinking. I'm going to go ahead and add another FSM to this point light. I always set my watermark just in case you're working with a team. You kind of want to mark which FSMs are yours. And for this, I don't know. Let's think of it like this. We're just going to enable and disable this light on a timer. So we could do it maybe a little bit faster than what we've done before. So, hey, Andre, how's it going? Thanks for joining us. Um, we might do that's in seconds, so we might just do like a half a second here, and then what I'll do is we're gonna turn off the light here, wait a half a second, and then we're gonna turn on there. Yeah, I did feel like there's not too much on game dev. Although I'm a huge Unity fan, I have tried out Unreal a little bit. It seems actually way more complicated to me. We're gonna click finished here, and then we're gonna do the exact opposite on this property here. We're going to set the value true, and then we're gonna need one more wait. Hey, thanks for the follow. And then we're going to do one more wait and go and just start the whole process over. So we'll actually name this one deactivate, and then we'll forgot to push it. Name this one deactivate, and we'll name this one just so we can be a little bit more accurate. And so now if we go back to our scene here, I'm just going to push play, and then I'll just take a look at it in the scene view here. You can see it's blinking pretty good. So I like that. I don't really know. I mean, we can mess with the intensity here. Maybe it does have just a little bit more. I don't know what you guys think. I'm thinking maybe 1.75 looks pretty good. Now remember, we do have some lights over here. And I don't want them to bleed into it. So Andre, that's a good question, and I do have it set up as a command if you want to take a look at like maybe checking out the website or whatnot. You can also do command about, which gives you a little bit of a synopsis. But in general, the premise behind the game is this: our main character, which is a young boy, and his father. They retreat into this bunker due to some type of apocalyptic event. And the father, who's like this scientist engineer, he creates what's called the Dream Machine. And so using the Dream Machine, he can hook his son up into it every night and actually control his dreams. And so each night there'll be a different dream or dream level for the boy. And right now we have that set up with 10 different levels. And each one's going to be a different point in history, starting around medieval times to all the way until right before the catastrophic, apocalyptic event. And then eventually the boy is going to be able to leave the bunker, and he's going to go out and experience the event himself. And then it kind of turns into a survival game at that point, where he's going to have to go out and collect resources and bring them back to keep this bunker functional for his father. So there's a lot of information on that website that just came up. Definitely take a look at that. We also have a Discord channel, and there's a bunch more videos we stream every day, or every day we do any kind of development. We are going to be streaming this whole entire process from start to finish, including all the boring stuff. And thank you. Yeah, we definitely think it's a pretty cool idea. I'm really excited about it. It's really fun to work on. So it's been really nice experience so far. And so today our goal was to make it so that the player could potentially leave this bunker, although, like I said, that's going to be something that happens once we get past the 10 dream levels. And so what the dream levels really are is they're kind of they're a way for the boy to like hone his skills and learn skills before he leaves the bunker. So it's a way for his father, who's getting old and he's got health issues. He needs to somehow teach his son, what's going to be expected of him once he leaves the bunker. And we do have a twist built into there. I haven't been telling everybody, but if you do check out the website and you scroll down, there is a twist to the plot that I think is actually going to be pretty cool. So back to this light. So we do have it blinking, but once we press the button, we don't want it to blink anymore, right? So that is something we're going to want to turn off as well. So what I'm going to do is I'll lock this FSM, and let's go over to this one, or sorry, not this one, which we didn't name, but I'm just going to say, let's just call it light blink. Doesn't matter too much. But. And so we're going to want to turn that FSM off. And we're also going to want to do it beforehand. Now, if we play this through, play test it, and we run over to, you can see our light is flashing. It is getting kind of drowned out a little bit. We could probably play with that at some point. But if we come close to the button, we press E. The FSM is turned off. You can see that in my right-hand corner here. But we didn't toggle the light itself. But now you can see we can open the door and the light's going to be blocked. But we do want to turn that off as well. So I'll go back into, this is the button trigger FSM. We had that locked. And we're going to just toggle this component off. And like I said, we want to do it before this property here. I'm not sure if I ever played Undying. But if it's similar to this one, I might be interested in checking that out. I'm a huge fan of apocalyptic games and also survival games. So if it's anything like that, I would love it. So now if we play test this again and we go over, now if I press the button, you can see the FSM and the light component is deactivated, and I can go back and open. Really, that sounds really cool. Yeah, so Andre was saying that a game called Undying is about a mom getting bit by a zombie, and she has to teach the kid to survive before she turns. That sounds pretty cool, actually. I mean, the premise sounds really cool. I'm curious how how it looks and how it plays, but yeah, that would be awesome. Um, okay, so now we can leave this bunker. We have the lights. We don't have any sounds yet. That's something we could still potentially do. I also wanted to incorporate this light somehow. This was going to be the warning, the doors opening kind of light. So we could do something with that. We may even want to change that red as well. And then we have a trigger in here, but we're going to want to program that trigger to load the next level. If we look at this, we got to turn gizmos on, but we have our leave bunker trigger. Let's just go ahead and add an FSM to that as well. And actually, now that I think about it, instead of adding an FSM, we're going to just copy the one on the button here, because we can use a lot of these same concepts here. So where was I? Okay, yeah, so we can copy some of the components from that button trigger FSM that we already created. I'm gonna go ahead and change the name of this. We're gonna call it, the leave bunker trigger. I can spell. And so now with this one, once the player enters that trigger, enters that zone, we'll have the text come up. And we're just gonna say for now, I think we should probably even create some UI for this at some point. But this will work, just having this text pop up. So I might just say press E to leave, and this is a little wordy too. But press E to leave the bunker. And so if he does press E, we are gonna want to do a bunch of stuff. Actually, we may only need to do one thing, and that's it for now, anyway. But if he doesn't leave the bunker and he walks away, we do want him to turn off that text. So this works pretty good. But if he does press E, we are going to load that level. And so based off our index here, we are going to load level. Let's take a look. Level 12 here, or index 12. All right. And I'm just going to rename this load level. And so now if we come over here, we got to press the button again, open the door. And if we come in here, you can see now we're inside that trigger. We can look up, which I'm going to want to change that. Where he can't see anything, but for now I'm not too worried about it. We have a lot of stuff we still have to fix it with this camera. You can see I don't want you to be able to zoom around or look around and see the outside of the bunker. But if we do go ahead and press E, yeah, he definitely has that happy look to him. And we can adjust that. I don't know how familiar you are with the Cinti Studios assets, but I think 99% of all of their character models all have a pretty happy face to it. That might be something we go in and fix on our own at some point. It would be funny to see him running around zombie apocalypse with a big old smile on his face the entire time. So yeah, with Unity, there isn't. We do have it set up currently where it's supposed to zoom in on the character here. We didn't put too much time into troubleshooting it. It was working just fine in the beginning, but some of these tighter spaces, it's not working the way I want it to. But I just didn't want to dedicate too much time to fixing that yet, because we may end up going down a completely different route. I really just went with this character controller and camera controller just so we can walk around and do stuff. But we're gonna want to do some combat-based concepts. So things are gonna change for sure. But I will say now that I'm here and I'm inside this trigger, I'm pressing E to leave, and it's not loading that index level. And the reason why is because we forgot to add it to our build setting. So we're gonna go ahead and add that one. There's the Apo City index 12. And so now if we go back in, yeah. I mean, we're gonna have to polish it eventually. I mean, this one works at least the play test. Oh, look at that! And now we're stuck. And that's why we play test right there. But yeah, it works for the time being. But of course, yeah, we're gonna want to really fine tune it. I think I've mentioned this in earlier streams. The camera controller, character controller are probably the most important things in a video game. If it's off, people aren't going to play your game. So now I fixed that thing, so we are officially in the bunker level, or the Apple City level. Now we did copy this, we duplicated this from our level 10 from our dream. um we did copy this from our dream level, which our dream level we do play as a different character here. But in this particular situation, we're not going to load level 10 no more. We're going to load the actual, apocalyptic city. So we're going to want our character, our normal player. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take our character here and the main camera and the player follow camera, and I'm going to create a prefab here and just create an empty, reset the transform, and I'm going to just call it player, and I might even do _kid, just because we're going to want a different character per dream level. So eventually we might have 10 prefabs for each one of those characters, and then eventually we're going to have the player, the actual kid prefab as well. But I'm going to take all of these and throw that in there. And then I'm going to create a prefab. Now we have this gag here, pretty cool. If we go into that scene we were just in, the apocalyptic city, we no longer need this criminal, and we're going to throw in our character here. And where's he at? Doesn't really matter where he starts out, at least at this point, because we actually haven't created the outside of the bunker. I was thinking we can use something to this extent here. In fact, let's just use that for now, I guess. We'll move him over here. I don't know, and Andre, maybe you have. I don't know if you ever played Fallout, but I love that game. But if you ever leave the bunker the very first time in Fallout, it's a very epic moment of the game, and the sun comes down and hits your eyes. I think that's such a cool transition for that game. I would love to do something like that in this game. We don't need these other concepts. Yeah, I've played every single one, including the original PC ones that came out. The original Fallout 1 and 2 for PC back in the day. All right, let's save this, and I'll go ahead and push play. And so now you can see we are playing this scene as the kid here. If we go back to our bunker scene here and just kind of play this through, officially. Now we're going to come over here, press the button, open the door, go to leave the bunker, and then bam. We just left the bunker. We already got some zombies, and we can run around and do whatever we want. So I think this is already looking pretty good. Now we can do some more stuff. I think now is a good time to maybe look at the sounds. We can incorporate the door opening and closing. We can also do some type of an alarm. I don't want it to be too crazy, but we can incorporate that stuff in this door opening process. And then also, I didn't really talk about it too much in previous streams, but when the character leaves the bunker, he's no longer going to look like that. We're going to actually bring him over here, and we're going to equip guns or an outfit, armor, and stuff like that. Yeah, I definitely agree, Andre. That's exactly what I'm thinking too. I loved that moment. I will always remember that, leaving the bunker and how it felt. And yeah, I think it's a great payout for the player, and it's just a great experience. And sometimes I've gone back and just almost kind of relived that experience over again. Like, man, check this out. This is such an amazing part of the story. Um, so I definitely, I mean, that's going to be really hard to replicate, and I definitely don't want to just copy off of Fallout. But I think in our particular story, this child's been in the bunker for X amount of years, the majority of his life, and so him leaving this bunker needs to be a pretty epic experience. I don't think we'll achieve it. Well, I definitely know we won't achieve it today. It's something that we're going to fine tune, and it's probably going to be some of that polish that we do, towards the end. Maybe more in alpha range. Um, by then, I already hope I can have some people beta testing the game and looking at other stuff before I really fine tune that kind of stuff. But what I was saying earlier is, so we're going to push the players over here to select an outfit, like armor, and select a weapon before he gets to leave the bunker. So remember, he can't actually leave the bunker at any point of the story. He can only leave the bunker once he's completed level 10. Once he completes level 10, the father is going to have some dialogue for him, and he's going to say, hey, you're going to have to leave the bunker. You've learned everything you need to learn. So now you're going to need to leave the bunker and go get us supplies, whatever it is, food, water, gasoline, who knows. Um, but he's going to say, but make sure you get geared up. Make sure you get equipment. It's crazy out there. You need to make sure. Um, no, so we're only on day. Andre asked if there was a timeline for the project. We're only on actually day 13 today, or maybe we're day 14. Um, so we're just streaming as much as possible, as often as possible. We're usually trying to do like 5 days a week, but we're only doing 2.5 hour increments. So we're trying to make as much progress as we can, and hopefully eventually gear up and really start pushing. A game like this, especially with all these different dream levels, I'd love to see, getting some beta testing going probably in about 6 months. But if we can get it done sooner than that, I'm all for it. Our biggest issues, we may only have a couple dream levels ready to go. Um, and if the dream levels are good and the bunker scene is good, I'm okay putting it out there, for people to experience. And but like, I don't know if you saw our first dream level, but that's a huge like Roman city. And so if we talk about all the NPCs that we're going to be putting in there, all the dialogue we're going to have to put in there, play testing all the colliders and everything in there, all that good stuff. It's definitely gonna take some time. Just that one scene alone, probably. All right, so if we think back of this story, the father is gonna say, "Hey, go gear up," and so he's actually gonna send the player over to this general area, and that's where the player is gonna be able to choose his armor, choose his starting weapon. It's probably gonna be a bunch of different types of pistols you can. Once he chooses those, that's when he'll probably have to go back to the father, say, hey, I got my loadout, and the father's gonna say, okay, I've unlocked the door, you can leave now. And that's when we're gonna be able to toggle, push that button and leave the bunker. So I guess we should have probably, at least timeline wise, or maybe to avoid some confusion, we probably should have set this stuff up first. But it's okay. As long as you guys are following me and you understand what I'm saying, it's okay to kind of backtrack like that. So what we're gonna do is we'll go ahead and set this up. Yeah, Andre was just talking about, potentially, working with Unity as well, and how hard it is to find a job as a game developer. And I definitely 100% agree, and that's what started me working on with my own company. And what we do, I haven't really talked about it too much on this stream, but we really specialize in creating prototypes for companies who are looking to use those prototypes to go out and pitch publishers. So we've made a lot of prototypes over the last few years, but I really wanted to just kind of create my own, and so that's what this stream really is about: is taking one of my ideas and doing it start to finish, just one man team really, and then bring in you guys, bring in the community, and get everybody's input, and just kind of go down the road like that and see what comes of it. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of Unity. I'm a huge fan of Playmaker, which is a version of visual scripting, kind of like Blueprint for Unreal. And then with all the advances in AI these days, I really do believe that anybody can make a game as long as they dedicate the time and the energy to do it. Um, yeah, so back to this. So we are going to have this moment where the father's like, "Hey, go get your weapons," and then we're going to remove that lock, and we're going to then make it so that the player can open this cage here. I'll go ahead and add the box collider here and turn it into a trigger. And so we will have to have some timeline manager. I'm going to go ahead and add that here under our managers. I'm going to go ahead and create an empty game object, and I'm just going to call it timeline. And of course, this is going to be changing a lot, but this is going to handle, like, once the player reaches level 10, what's he going to do? uh, don't worry, Andre, about distracting me. I always welcome the comments, and I definitely appreciate everything you've brought up so far. I mean, it's stuff that other people, I think, want to hear. So by all means, it's fine. I enjoy it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we are always looking to expand, and we actually work with another company, kind of a brother sister company, called Game Dev University. I haven't really pitched that too much, but if you really want to make video games, and you want to be able to meet with somebody like me and sit down with them and work on a game, or have them work on your game with you, Game Dev University is huge. That's essentially what they do. You get a certain amount of hours per month for some kind of subscription based concept, and so I highly recommend that if you kind of need somebody to help you out and look at your game, kind of telling you what's going on. I also, anybody who reaches out to me through email, through Discord, whatever, I'm always willing to help out as well whenever I can. Give you advice, kind of help you, show you the ropes. What to do, what not to do, any of that stuff. I'm a huge fan of video games, and I love helping great ideas. It's really big. Even if I don't really get a cut out of it, it's always nice to say, "Hey, I helped that game get going." So I'm a huge fan of all game developers, and all the different aspects that they bring to the table. So yeah, with this timeline FSM, we're just gonna say, "Hey, once this happens, this can happen," so on and so forth. I'm not sure if we really need it right this exact second, but I'm gonna go ahead and create it just so it's here, and it's gonna remind me that um now we can do it. um I know I should get the cut, right? No, I never expect that kind of stuff. I'm a huge, like I said, I'm just a huge fan of seeing the progress, the befores and afters, Like that's always been rewarding to me. Yeah, I mean, if a company wanted to say, "Hey, thank you so much. Here's 10% on the back end," I may not turn them down, but but it's not something that I require or request by any means. All right, so we have this trigger here, and so this is kind of our loadout trigger. If we did want to set up this timeline manager, we would say, "Hey, once the player has selected his gear and then selected his guns, now we're going to activate the I just lost my keyboard again. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would appreciate you joining the Discord. It's a work in progress, and the more people we get there, the better. And there is going to be different levels to the Discord, so depending on your access is what you're gonna get. But at least for now, we have a lot of stuff in there that people can post on, and we have some polls that get posted on there, and you'll definitely be able to see when we go live, when we do streaming. So, all right. So to start off with this cage here, I do want to move this cage into the interactables as well. Let's move this down. All right, so we will have some kind of nice, animation with this as well. It's gonna be a very kind of an open and close. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy the fridge FSM. And I'm gonna rename it just that gun cage trigger. So now with this one, gonna be very similar concepts, open and close. The fridge did have sound. We don't have those sounds quite yet, so I will go ahead and change the color scheme to this. For those of you guys who don't know, I with blue, I mean you can use any kind of color scheme you want, but with blue is for me is when I am referencing kind of an some type of object in the scene, and then yellow is usually sound reference. We don't have the sound for this cage yet, so I'm gonna go ahead and delete those. And then we will need to set up an animation for this as well. So I will do that now. And it's just going to be the gun cage open. Very similar to what we've done a bunch these last few days. And I'm going to go ahead and scroll out to the 2 seconds. And open these doors. I don't know. 120 just seems like what we've been going with lately. I don't know, is that too far for this one? Probably not. Now, if we preview this, aside from the lock, which, like I said, we're going to make that disappear. Aside from that, I think that looks good. And so now let's just go ahead and set up the animator, get the animator controller again. I feel like we've been doing this a lot lately. If I go a little fast, that's just because within the last few days, we've probably done this maybe 10 times. Yep, you can. It is something that I rarely do. But you can see down here, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, it's visible. It's right underneath my video, but down here you can see there is a curves option for the animation there. Good question. Trying to remember the last time I used that, what kind of animation it was. Um, but I feel like it's been a while. I think it was an animation, like just I did this top-down game that had some traps, and I think I was moving these columns back and forth, but I wanted them to slowly move in the beginning and then move fast at the end. So I think I used curves for that. But in general, with just these types of games, like survival games, opening drawers and whatnot, I've just been doing just the regular animations. All right, so we have this one, which we're gonna go ahead and reverse that speed, and we'll call it close. And of course, we need that condition, and we don't need an exit time on that. I think that looks good. We go ahead and end play. Yeah, I mean, I'd give you my mouse if I could. But yeah, you could see that animation looks good. We do have to get rid of that loop. In Unity, the all these animations when you first create them come with a loop. We definitely don't need that. Of course, I need to do that. The game turned off, but go back, take a look. Here we go. And bam. So maybe we will do some of this timeline. So we can create a Boolean value here, and we could call it level 10 complete. And so, of course, like I said, this is going to change probably a bunch of times. But we can say, we can have a level 10 check here. And so we'll do like a bool test. If it's true, we'll go one way. If it's false, we'll go... Actually, if it's false, we're going to do nothing. Andre was asking if the animation gets canceled, it starts from the end of the animation regardless. Is there a way to interrupt instead? I'm not sure what you mean on that. So in this particular case, like if I were to run over here and start this animation, there is no way to cancel it. It's going to go ahead and finish it all together. Regardless, I think if you go into the animator controller here, we are saying, hey, this doesn't have an exit time here. And so at any point, if this condition is met, it's going to go ahead and fire this other animation. So if we go and do this just a little bit faster, if I press E, but then I immediately press, oh, I got you what you're saying now. So it's finishing the animation really fast. Huh. I have never noticed that. That's not usually the case. Huh. Just checking out some of the other items. Yeah, it finishes the animation. Huh. I have never noticed that. Uh, that's something yeah, it's something I would have to look into. I'm curious why it's doing that. Oh, I know why it's doing that. So because Okay. So what we did, and and what I probably didn't I probably mentioned this before you started watching, but so we have a gun open animation, gun cage open animation. We don't officially have a closed animation. What I did was I took the same gun cage open animation and I reversed the speed. So now it's going to do the exact opposite. So if you think about it, it can end this open animation prematurely. You can end it at 50% or whatever percentage. But as soon as it gets to this animation, this gun cage open in reverse, it's gonna reset its position, at the 1 second mark, which is it being all the way open. Um, I hope that makes sense. But that's part of the issue there. I'm sure there's ways we could go in and try to fix that or perfect that. At this point, I'm not too worried about it. I mean, if a player is sitting there just opening and closing it, they're gonna notice that kind of stuff. But I don't think it's not really gold plating. I guess it is something that is nice to have. It's a more realistic animation. But I don't think it necessarily makes or breaks the game. All right. So with the timeline, we were working on this timeline here. If we did this level 10 check, and of course we're gonna have to potentially do this every frame, which is taxing on the system. So I hate doing this, but at least for now, for this particular day of development, we're gonna go ahead and leave this as is. But in general, once you complete your 10th level, it's just gonna automatically update this Boolean value and it's gonna send an event. So then we don't have to do this every frame. Um, but what we're gonna say is once level 10 is complete, and we can even put this um, the never mind. There's usually a way to put that put this value in the inspector here, and so then I could toggle it from the inspector rather than toggling it in the script. But I'm not seeing that right now. But in general, if level 10 is completed, then we're going to turn on that trigger for the gun case, right? So if we lock this up and go to the gun locker, we can now just do a set property and enable here. And so then normally this collider is going to be turned off, right? And then we could just call this one set or set cage trigger. A little wordy, but it'll work. And then what we would do is now go to a new check. Okay, has the player officially got his gear? This is all kind of hypothetical at this point, but it's just showing you, um, kind of what this is going to look like in general. So player completes level 10. Father says, "Hey, go get your gear." He's going to go over now that that new collider is now turned on. Yeah, I was curious how Unreal handles some of those animations. I never really got that far in Unreal development to really deal with animations. And then Blueprint was actually kind of confusing to me, even though I love using Playmaker and I know they're very similar. But I never quite got to that level, so I'm not sure how it does that. Um, I know there is an actual way to through Playmaker. There is a way to just completely stop an animation altogether. Um, and so that's something we would probably do in order to really battle that concept. Is if the player presses E, it's gonna stop. Or presses E early, it's gonna just completely stop that animation. But then, I'm not sure how we would then restart the animation from that current transform. So it could get interesting, but I bet there is a solution out there for that. Also with that timeline manager here, if we take a look at that, one other thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to deactivate the lock that we had on. And because I'm now going to specify this reference here, I'm going to go ahead and mark this state blue. And so just for now, I'm going to go ahead and add this padlock as a child of this game, this gun locker, because we're going to deactivate it, so it's not going to move with the gun locker. So now you can see it's going to activate the collider or the trigger and then go ahead and unlock it. So Andrea was saying that in Unreal, there's a way to do that with the animation. So that's actually pretty cool to know. I don't, and I could be wrong. It's wouldn't be the first time. But as far as I know, I don't think there is anything built in directly with Unity that's going to do that. Um, I'm trying to think of some solutions, but it may even be kind of a blended. You can do kind of a blended tree animation where it's based off of its value is where the animation's at, and so you can just adjust that value. You can say, hey, when it's open, go all the way to this value, but if you stopped it early, it would remember that value and then go the opposite direction. And so that would probably be the way to do it is doing more of a blended tree. You can see right here, we went into this. I don't know if you can see this, but this blend number is probably would be the best way to do it. So it would normally be, we can adjust these numbers. We don't have to have it to 0 and 1. But in general, it could go from 0 to -1, which would be, um, closed or open, or however you want to do it. And then 1 would be open. And so it would remember its value and then just adjust the animation and blend between two different animations while you're doing it. I think that would be a solution if we really wanted to go down that road. And you can see when you do the blended tree, you do get this parameter up here that can be adjusted through script. So that's something. I think that would probably be the way I would do it. That's just me thinking, on the spot. Maybe there's a better solution if we looked it up online. All right, so with the timeline here, we do have we deactivated the padlock, we enabled this, and then of course, so now these objects here, the actual bunker wall, we would actually have this. This is already deactivated because it's dependent on the button, but we would also have this trigger and the lights and everything also deactivated. Um, Andre had the recommendation of making the exit time 0.1 and the transition duration 0.9. We can take a look at that real quick. Um, so you can see, probably have to be right here. Yeah. I'm not sure. Interruption source might be one way of doing it too. But you can see how I can't change the exit time because we don't have this selected. And and the reason why I don't have this exit time selected is because it would have to then play the entire animation first before you do your trigger. So it's gonna make you open it all the way up. And maybe that's something we have make it so the player has to open it all the way up because the animation's gonna do it anyway. But I tend to, if I do want to close it, I want to be able to just push a button and then just close it right away and not have to wait an additional second, to do that. But that is something that, we could play around with and see, what is the sweet spot, so to speak. Yeah, I've never actually played around with that interruption source. That might be very similar to what you guys have in Unreal. I'll have to do some research on that and see maybe if that's something that fixes all that. Maybe, like I said, maybe I was wrong in that Unity does actually have something for that. I know Unity is really good at keeping up with Unreal. So maybe that's something they did add at some point and I just never noticed. All right, so we're gonna have this other state here. Um, Basically like, hey, once you've gotten your gear, we're going to then toggle the wall stuff, the door stuff, the leaving the bunker stuff. Um, and so we're gonna want to, in this new state, we're gonna go ahead and set this property. We're gonna set this property here, enabled. Set this to true, and we're also going to turn on that. So we're just gonna do activate game object here. We are gonna specify, so that's gonna be blue again, and we're gonna turn that on. And so this is gonna just be the set that bunker. Trigger. No, you're not sidetracking me. I mean, um, yeah, it is something that is interesting, and I almost want to maybe after this stream take a look and see if I can figure it out. And maybe if you tune into tomorrow's stream, maybe I'll have an answer for you. But that is something interesting because, like I said, I haven't really played around with that stuff, so it's something new here for me. All right, so yep, so we're gonna want to activate the buttons trigger. We're gonna want to turn that light on, and when we toggle that light on, the FSM is already toggled on, so it's gonna start blinking. Um, we're gonna have to probably create another Boolean value here, and we're gonna just say geared up. Is the player geared up? Yes or no? And so that would be the Boolean test here. And so we don't want that finish transition. We're just going to want, true. Either yes, it's true, or it's false. And if it's false, we're not going to actually do anything. But if it is true, we're going to make it so that the player can leave. So if we kind of play test this, currently the all of the triggers should be off. Okay, we do want to turn the light off and up. You can see we can't do anything at this point. Let's go ahead and toggle that light off here. I'll take a look at that again. So the light's off. We can't do anything over here. And we can't do anything to the cage. But if I go into this FSM and I say, hey, well, guess what? We just completed level 10, so I'll make that value true. So now, if we go back into the game view, you can see the lock has disappeared on the cage, and we can go ahead and open it. Now, I put a couple guns in there. I put some handguns and a couple shotguns. I think at this point, we'll probably have some type of UI pop up, and it'll be like, hey, select your loadout. And we'll probably only have a few options for the player, at least starting off. I don't even know if we'll give them access to a shotgun. It might just be a couple different types of pistols. Maybe a difference between a revolver and an actual pistol. So maybe like a 9mm versus a 357, something, 38 special, something like that. We'll give them those types of options. We don't want to give them too much like good gear in the beginning. And so once the player selects his loadout, and you exit out, that's going to then turn that value here. It's going to turn that value. I saw another issue here. We want to change this Boolean this bool test to geared up. But it's going to change that next level. Hey, they did officially gear up, and so now you can do the next part of the test here. So we'll say level 10 is complete. Go back to the game. The lock's gone. We can now open this back up. And we select our guns. Now, once we select our gun, we're going to then select what our armor is going to look like too. And so the next step would be then, hey, you're now geared up. And so if we go back to the game, we can now go over here, the light's flashing, and we can then officially go through the door now. I've been having problems with my internet, with my keyboard. Man, anything that can go wrong today has been going wrong. So I totally get that. I mean, knock on wood. Yesterday, my computer even crashed like in the middle of the stream. So, I definitely understand all that. But yeah, it'd be great if you do tune in tomorrow. Normally we do it a little bit earlier though. I don't know what time it is for you, but we started today. Obviously an hour and a half ago, but in general, so it's 3:30 my time. We usually start around 8:30 my time, 8:30 in the morning. But definitely if you're there you go. Yeah, I think earlier is always better. I can get a lot more done in the day, right? But definitely if you're following, you'll get some type of notification, email or whatnot saying, hey, we're live. Otherwise, if you join the Discord channel, it'll also populate in there. So basically that timeline manager is working fairly effective here. Of course, we have to manipulate the Boolean values by hand. But we'll set that up to do that through script eventually. So the next step would be once you select your gun, it's going to be, hey, so let's select your armor. And this is actually going to change the look of the player here. So with this locker, this is going to be kind of the armor locker. I'm going to go ahead and set this up as well. And maybe we change this to saying, hey, did you get your gun? Did you get your weapon? Retrieve weapon. And so I'm going to change this Boolean value here. And we'll just call it weapon selected. And then so we would create another Boolean value that says armor selected. And maybe if we have time today, I might even do the UI representation of this stuff for now too. So basically Did he select a weapon? If he did, then now we're going to unlock the the locker instead of unlocking the bunker. And we're gonna do another state here. Hey, did you retrieve your armor? Hopefully this makes sense. I know it's kind of vague at this point, just because we're adding a lot of these features, and we're not quite to that level in the game, you know. But I think this is going to be a good placeholder, and I really want to show off or highlight that you're going to be able to select your gun, and then it's going to show up in that apocalyptic city level, and then when we create the third person shooting animator controller, that's we're going to want to play around with that a lot. So I wanted to get what we needed to get done prior to that moment. So let's, I don't know if I didn't edit this trigger here. I think that looks fine. Now I will say, when we set up the UI for this cage and you exit out of the cage will close. So I'm not gonna worry about like this locker door. See how it opens up this way? They're gonna clip into each other right now until we get that UI stuff set up. I'm not too worried about that. We will fix it eventually. There is already a locker that we set up earlier, but this one's a little bit different. We set up the 3 lockers over here, and we set it up so that the animations cycle through all the doors. You can go up and interact with this locker, and every time you push the E button, a different door is going to open. So we can't really just take what we did over there and apply it to this one, since we're only dealing with the one door right now. So I will just go ahead and do what we've done quite a few times already. And fun. Been having problems with this. I don't know if it's my mouse wheel or if it's Unity, but it doesn't want to roll out to 2 seconds sometimes. There it goes. Go. And we're just going to rotate this out. 120 seems to be the sweet spot all the time. And let's just preview that. Looks fine. Might even be a little slow. And then let's change it so it doesn't loop. And since this is just an open close, I'm gonna go ahead and take one of these other open and close concepts. Probably just this cabinet trigger. I'm gonna copy this FSM and go ahead and put that on here. Call it locker trigger. And then on this one, I think everything can stay the same. I don't think we need to make any adjustments. Of course, eventually we're going to want to add like a cool locker opening and close sound. But for now, I think that'll work. And so if we go into our timeline manager here, this is going to be setting that locker trigger. Come on. There we go. And so if we take this, just takes the box collider and go ahead and set that property, set that component property. And we're going to turn that on. So normally it's going to be off. And we don't need to deactivate or activate anything else. So for now, I mean, we're going to want to do that UI stuff, but For now, we're just going to enable this. And I'm kind of wondering if we make it so the player can't go back into the cage. I don't know. That's a good question. What if you want to get the armor before the guns? And maybe we have that option available. But could be the way I look at it. This is we will probably have some kind of quest, some kind of mission, kind of assistance going on, where it's going to tell you now that you've talked to your father and you pass level 10. It's going to say, hey, go select your gun, and so it's going to push the player in one direction. And this is just initially. This is when you very first pass level 10. You go select your gun, then you're going to select your armor, then you're going to go open the bunker door, then you're going to leave. But whenever the player comes back and forth from the bunker from that point on, you're going to be able to go into this cage or this locker whenever you want. And so that's going to be, you can do it in any order at that point. So yeah, we're just guiding the player, kind of almost like a tutorial at this point. But eventually, yeah, free for all. And I didn't really even mention stuff over here, but these shelves over here will start getting filled up with all the stuff you bring back to the bunker. So this room is going to be very, very essential. You'll probably spend a lot of time in this room at that point, because you're no longer going to be spending time in the Dream Machine room. Once you kind of graduated the Dream Machine and you're working in the real apocalyptic world. Okay. So we enabled this trigger, and then we're going to. Did we retrieve this? Did we retrieve the armor? And then if we did, now we can get out the bunker. Let's take a look at this. All right, so we can't do anything at this point. And then all of a sudden, magically, we pass level 10. I'll change that value. We go back to the game that we can now get into here. And I'm going to simulate that it's closed, because at this point is when the UI would pop up, and then we're going to close it. And then now we're waiting for this next one. So the weapon is selected. And so if we go back into the game, now we can go to, let's see, the locker. There we go. It was in preview mode still. And we have some overlap of the triggers. We're going to want to change those. So, Andre was asking, so the game's called Dream Machine, but you can only use it in the tutorial part of the game. So I guess, I don't know if you went and checked out the twist on the website or not, but so there is a twist, and it's gonna kind of explain a little bit more why the game is currently called Dream Machine. We may actually change the name of that, and there is actually a poll on the Discord. Basically, there's going to be more to it than just a tutorial part. Also, I am toying around with the idea of maybe the player finding like dream levels while they're going through the ruins, scavenging for supplies. I thought it'd be kind of cool if it's almost like if you found almost like a disc or whatnot that you can now bring back to the Dream Machine and play some really cool Easter egg style level that wasn't in the original 10 levels that are kind of like the tutorial. So I'm kind of toying around with that concept, that idea. Also, the dream levels will give you like skill points, and you'll be able to spend those skill points on whatever you want. So they are still the Dream Machine is still more than a tutorial to some extent. And then so I was thinking, if you do find those Easter egg levels and you play maybe something that doesn't really fall into the storyline, maybe like a sci-fi level or something like that, that are more just going to be fun based, then maybe now you got another skill point, and so you're just going to be that much stronger as a player. But I would definitely, if you can, check out the twists to the storyline, and maybe that'll make a little bit more sense to you on why the game is currently called Dream Machine. So we did forget to set up the animator controller for this locker, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that real quick. I feel like I've done this so many times that I'm starting to forget which ones I've done and which ones I didn't. I'm just gonna try to go through this really fast and hopefully not make a mistake. That looks good. Now let's go back in and play test this. There you go. Hopefully he read the twist. So hopefully, does that make a little bit more sense why the game's called Dream Machine? All right, so go here. We completed level 10. We can now get into the locker. I'll go ahead and close that. And then now, so we selected our weapon. Now if we go back into the game and open the locker there, and let's close it. So now we selected our armor. So now we should be able to go back over here. Now the light's going, and we can get out. So yeah, I think that's working pretty good. Yeah, yeah, that's kind of what I'm hoping for. And that's a good way of describing it too. Um, but yeah, we definitely think that that twist would be huge, and completely changes the game to some extent. And so the official, I don't know how much to really put in this stream at this point, but I think the official, like when you're playing the official game, it's gonna just be way more crazy than just your standard zombie apocalypse. All right. All right. So I think timeline wise and going through this set of triggers, I think works and makes sense now. So I think we can set up some type of UI placement, or maybe just the UI placeholders at this point. I'm going to go ahead and I'll switch to 2D mode, and I'm going to go ahead and take a look at some of our panels here. We're going to create a pop-up. And it's going to be very similar to this pause panel, I think, actually. I'm going to duplicate that. And we'll just call it, which one we're doing first, the weapon. We'll call it the weapon selection panel. Go ahead and turn that on. We don't need the Dream Machine panel here. And then I do want to keep with the dimmed background. But I'm thinking we need some type of, actually, the more I think about this, the more I think we should have it more like the settings panel here. Take a look at that. If you look at the settings panel, it's going to be more of like this bordered, almost like pop-up. I still want to black out the background. So I think that's going to work great. And so I'm going to just change the name of this real quick. So what I'm thinking is kind of like this settings panel. Obviously, we don't need all of this crazy stuff. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. We do want the button closed still. And I don't think we need any of this. I do want to rename this panel here. Like I said, this is going to be the weapons panel. We don't need any of this sport stuff. Don't need the graphics toggle. We don't need this. And I don't think we need the apply button. I guess technically you can select the gear, and then I know X is kind of counterintuitive. You're kind of like saying cancel, but in this case, if you selected your gun and you pressed X, it's almost like accept as well. Yeah, Andre was saying that he's looking forward to the completion of this game, but he's not a huge fan of the low poly style graphics. And actually, I love your input there. And I mentioned this probably day one, maybe day two. I'm a huge fan of Cinti Studios, and they're the ones who create these low poly graphics. I'm a huge fan of them. I pretty much own all of their assets at this point. But the reason why I do that is because it's a great um, asset to have for creating prototypes. So let's say we get Dream Machine, really close to completion. We're gonna have all these placeholders, we're gonna have all these graphics, all that good stuff. But it's gonna help us really show off our product, having these essential graphics in the beginning. It also saves a lot of time. If I were to hire an art team, I mean, we could spend a crap ton of money, and it would take a lot of time in order to create even what we have so far with Cinti. So really, I use the graphics, the low poly graphics, one to just be more performant during the development process, but two, I use them as a placeholder for what I'm looking at. If I want to go down that artist road, I agree with you that I think a game like this, the better the graphics, the better. But that's something we'll have to see. One, how much support we get from the game, and then two, maybe if we can find a publisher down the road that's willing to help raise funds to hire a full out art team, and then hopefully that art team can get things created in a timely manner, and we can get this game out there with better graphics. But yes, thank you for that comment. I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way as you. I'm gonna go ahead and change this to, let's call it weapon. I don't know, maybe weapon loadout. Fine. I don't even know at this point if I have any graphics for this kind of stuff. Let's take a look at what we have so far. So I do have this GUI Pro kit, and that's where we're getting a lot of these UI graphics from. And so I don't know. Curious if there's any type of gun or weapon. Okay, they got stuff like this. I mean, we could definitely use this as placeholders. Here's probably a better looking one. Here we go. Yeah, I guess this isn't too bad. And so I'm not exactly sure what this is going to look like, but what we could probably do, and I don't even know if we need these lines right now. I'll disable one just in case we want to use it, and then I'll just duplicate it if we need it. We definitely don't need this language pop-up either. I just saw that. But if I do kind of a UI image here, and let's use this gun for example here. Um, actually, let's change that. So we're going to want to use actually a button here. And I guess we don't really need the text mesh pro button because we're not actually going to have text involved. And then we're going to change the look of the button to the gun here. And then we're going to preserve the aspect there. And then let's just increase the size here. You can see this is the length of the button. Yeah, exactly, Andre. The prototypes, I mean, I think they're essential for, pitching to a publisher. They want to be able to play the majority of the game. I know you can technically, and I've done it before, you can technically just create kind of the first level, last level, or a few playable levels, have a nice menu system. And if it's an amazing concept, you could potentially sell that. But the more you have, the better. And I'm not gonna just stop, with what we already have right now. I'm gonna just keep going. I'm gonna keep plugging away. At some point, we may say, "Hey, publisher's on board now with what we have," and so we're gonna go ahead and start doing this, this, and this, and I'll keep you guys updated on the entire process. But right now, I haven't even taken what we have and pitched anybody. Uh, we are streaming live, and then we're also creating some videos, and they're going on like TikTok and YouTube and whatnot. So who knows? Maybe we'll get seen organically, but at some point I may say, "Hey, it's time, guys. We got something we can show off," and I may even list like, "Hey, these are the publishers that I've pitched towards." I want you guys to be involved with the entire process, and I really want to show the entire process, not just creating the game, but actually getting the game from start to finish, like actually getting it published, actually getting it released, actually putting it on Steam. I mean, you name it. I want to keep you guys involved, so I think I went on a tangent there a little bit. But so in general with this, we're gonna have this gun be a button. For example, maybe, I'm not gonna give the player the option for something like this quite yet. But maybe we have, a couple different options here. Or maybe this is too big. Yeah, actually, and that's the thing with publishers, they do take a huge cut. And I'd love to hear more about your experience, but yeah, there are publishers out there that I don't want to bash anyone specifically, but there are publishers which I've always called sharks, and they're more out to benefit themselves more than anything else, and sometimes taking a publisher, um, going in the route of the publisher, you got to look out for certain things, for sure. And so yeah, I always, if you can go down the road of getting just support from your community, then that's definitely 100% the best way to do it. Also, it really depends on how much you just want that game out there. If you just really want this game out there to play it or to show the world, and you're not really looking to make a lot of money off of it, then maybe a publisher is the way to go. But I think we could probably even have an episode almost dedicated to the publisher concepts, um, because there's so much information that I have, that I've learned, and I would love to share that with anybody who's interested at that to that extent. Yeah. Yep. The a lot of 80%. Yep. So he's saying Andre's saying that they were asking for 80% plus a bunch of conditions, and that is pretty standard, especially with the bigger when you're looking for a bigger amount of a contribution from your publisher. Usually, the bigger the amount, the higher it goes. I actually pitched a 7 figure a 7 figure budget to some of the big companies, and yeah, and that's exactly what I experienced. The 80% plus, and they wanted to recoup all of their fees and all of their advertising and anything that they put into the project. They wanted to recoup that before they even issued out a single check to anybody from the company. So those are things you're gonna have to look out for if you go down the publisher route. Um, but if you a lot of mobile games, if you can stick with a smaller, maybe like the five digit budget, some of them you can get maybe down into the 30%, 40% range. Um, but a game like this, I don't know if a 5 digit budget, how much it would help as far as the art program goes. So we'll see. We'll see where we go. We're still a little early in the process, but that is definitely something we will always have to consider. I was trying to see if we got this other rifle here, kind of a sniper rifle. I was hoping that maybe there was a revolver graphic here. We don't have it. It looks like all of these pistols just look like blocks, essentially. Um, so I might just change this one to the sniper rifle. So this isn't what I'm going to officially let the player select from, but this is just going to be an example of what it's going to look like, the weapon loadout here. And then what I'm also going to do, and let's see if I can find it. There is a highlight panel um, concept that I've used with some of these UIs. Where did I think we did that in the settings under the language? Here we go. No, it wasn't that. It was this focus frame here. So I'm thinking when you press the button, you're going to essentially toggle on this other image, which is going to look kind of like this. Now, we're going to want to probably fade this out a little bit. Change the alpha here. Probably something like that. I don't want it to be too obnoxious. Um, but basically, if you push the button here, we'll just have this event here, and I'll just say, hey, the we're just gonna set that image to active. And so I'll duplicate this a couple more times. And of course, we're gonna need to reposition them. I know this isn't perfect, you know, but it's gonna get the idea across of what we're kind of looking for. Yeah, thank you, Andre. Yeah, um, the 5 digits, yeah, for our team, especially with a game like this. I mean, if you think about all the stuff we needed, I would say at least 6 figures. At least that's just what I'm thinking. Maybe I could, you know, maybe I could find it for less, but I don't know. We have all 10 of the dream levels that we would need to do graphics for, and then the apocalyptic city plus the twist. So um, at this point, I could easily seeing that being 6 figures. Um, so let's see this selected one. We're gonna move this up here. I don't know if we need it to be so thick. Something like that might work. And then last but not the sniper rifle. And actually, now that I look at this one, it kind of looks a little weird. So I'll duplicate this one and move it into the. And then we're also going to, maybe we do this through the Unity event, the button event system or not. Maybe we do this through scripting, but we are going to want it to toggle those other ones off. Select the button. So we could say, you know, if we added 3 more here, we could say, hey, these other ones, if you toggle this one on and off, these other ones need to be deactivated. And what's really cool is you can just copy this. And so now if we select these other buttons, we can go ahead and paste that. You can see it does show up. And then so basically button 1 is going to turn this off and all the other ones on. And so now button 2, you can see it's going to toggle this one on and all the other ones on. So it's kind of an easier way of doing it. Um, not sure what you mean by on hover. That might be a Unreal concept, but we do have a highlighted concept here built into the button here, the component itself. And so technically, if I just put my mouse over it, it is going to change to this highlighted color, which right now we didn't actually specify anything. um, but I'll show you what this looks like here in a second. We're gonna definitely play test this. And so another concept too is we don't want the player to be able to select all of these. So we probably are going to need some scripting. We're only going to want them to select one of these concepts, not all of them. But that's probably something that we will do on a different day. But for now, if we turn off that weapons panel and we go over towards our interactables. Um, I'm not sure what. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what you meant by like bind the event on that highlight flag. But in general, a lot of times I recommend doing this through scripting. These on-click events, they're good in the beginning when you first kind of set things up. But in general, we're gonna want some type of script or like a Playmaker FSM that really dives down and controls what these buttons do. This transition here is just the color tint transition. We could actually have done animations or sprite swaps. There's a lot of different things you can do. In general, probably the easiest, quickest way is just using this color tint. But like I said, we're gonna want some um, more logic to these buttons because otherwise, currently we would be able to just select any button that we want. So a lot of this is just going to be placeholder at this point, and just kind of show the concepts, and then we'll fine tune it in another day. Yeah, I would say I've heard that before about Unreal. I feel like there's a lot of stuff in Unreal that's just built right in, and then with Unity, they're kind of like, hey, you have more flexibility. You can do whatever you want through code, but we're not going to just have a lot of these features just kind of like standard. It's kind of like the Unreal's player controller, as far as I know, the actual or character controller. I think there's just a pre-made one that you can use with Unreal. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but you can kind of just drag it into the scene, and next thing you know, you got animations. You're walking around. You got a nice camera. You got all that stuff. Well, with Unity, they don't really have anything like that. You have to go out and find a different solution for that. Um, so okay, yeah, correct. Thank you. I thought so, but I haven't played with Unreal too much. I wasn't 100% sure. And so if we go into the I guess it was the gun locker here. We had this FSM for the gun locker that once it opens, it's gonna do something. So at this point, once it's open, we want to now toggle on this panel. And so we're gonna go ahead and activate this weapons panel. And then another kind of thing we learned earlier in a different day, different streaming day, we're going to want to turn off the player himself, because once you activate this UI panel, we don't want to now have the character still able to move around and do stuff. So I think, yep, the player was all the way down here. We're just going to do the kid itself, not the camera, all that stuff. So we're going to turn him off here. So it's going to toggle that weapons panel, turn off the kid, and then what we're going to have to do at this point, and I know we're going to need some much needed playtesting here, but in this close button here, we're going to want to add another FSM. And I'm actually going to call it exit button. And so I know we're building this one from scratch real quick, but it won't take too long. I'm going to set my watermark. I usually just use that one. We're going to use this UI button click event. And I usually just call this an idle scene because it's going to sit here and wait for the event here. And I'm going to just call this event pressed. So once the player presses this button, this event's going to fire. And so what we're going to want to do is once he presses close, not only are we going to want to turn off that, we're going to want it to turn off the panel itself, the weapons panel. So since we're specifying, I'm going to go ahead and let's say, I'm just going to say weapon close here. We're going to want it to turn off that weapons panel. We're going to want it to do that last too. But we're also going to want to turn back the kid, turn that guy back on. We'll do that first. And then we're also going to want to set that Boolean value for that. So we're going to say set boolean. We're going to do it. We're going to do this one called set FSM boolean value. So it's in our manager, it's in our timeline. So we're going to specify that. The FSM name is timeline or manager, and this particular boolean value is going to be our weapon is now selected. We're going to set that to true. So we're going to do those concepts here, and I think that's it. Oh, we are going to want to close that cage too, probably. So the player doesn't have to do that as well. So on the actual gun trigger here, we're just going to say set animator trigger, and we're going to specify that one as well. And we're going to say close. Not sure why it's throwing an error. That might just be like a bug here. And I don't know if we necessarily need to, but I'll go ahead and have this go back to the idle state. And you can see that error did go away. But I want to say this is it. We'll play test it. And so run over here real quick. Remember, we still have to simulate the first Boolean value on the timeline. Unlock this. We are going to still say, hey, level 10 is now complete. So if we go to our game view, we can open this. If we push open, bam, we get a weapon loadout UI. We have the cage that still opens in the background. I'm moving the mouse, pushing buttons. Nothing's moving. So our character is completely disabled at this point. And then if technically we can select these. Now, I don't know if you can see this, Andre, on your screen, but when I click this, you can see it kind of darkens a little bit. That's part of that tint feature built into the buttons. Now, I don't have anything kind of set up where I highlight it, but we could set that up where as soon as the mouse goes over to the button, something happens. Maybe just a little bit of a color change, something to that extent if we want. But this is working pretty good here. And you can notice because of the way we set it up, we're only selecting one at a time. We can't select all of them. Yeah, we could do that. In fact, I'll probably do that. I'll probably do that right now, adding a small delay. I'm assuming you're talking about the gates themselves, the cage gates. We could let them open a little bit before we open this pop-up here. But I do want to test out this close. And so it did throw us in the pause here. We don't want it to do that. And that's just because I duplicated the settings panel when I created this. So if we go down to this button close, you'll see that we already had some on-click events. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those. If we go ahead and test this just real fast again. I don't know if real fast is the correct word there, but we go into the game view. You can see our weapon loadout, and then if we click that, we also, it didn't update the Boolean value. So it's still saying, hey, press E to close. So we're gonna want to do that as well. So let's go back into the locker here, or sorry, the cage. Called a gun locker. In hierarchy, it's called gun locker, but I've been calling it a gun cage. But you can see we did all this stuff on this open, we can actually set a timer in here. We can actually say wait. And this is what I really love about Playmaker is I use these waits all the time to really fine tune the timing. You know, when you're doing actual scripting, C# scripting, you know, trying to just wait a few seconds is much more difficult. So I struggle a lot of times doing the timing when it comes to the scripting normal with C#. And so we can say, and I usually do the weights separate, so I'll do that here too. And the reason why is I just want them isolated so I know that they exist, and if I need to adjust the timing, I can do that. So what I can do is the button gets pressed, and then it's going to open, and then it's going to wait a certain amount of time, and then do the next state, and then it's going to finish off here. Essentially like this. And so what we want it to do is we definitely want it to do the open animation and the trigger, but we don't need it to toggle that panel quite yet. We're going to move those states over here. And so we're waiting 1 second, and then we're going to go ahead and toggle the weapons panel. All right, so we have that portion, that wait built in now. And I feel like there was something else we wanted to do real quick, and I'm already drawing a blank. Let's just go ahead and play test. Again, I don't know if real fast is the word I keep. Let's go, not on this, it's on the timeline. And level 10 is complete. So the game view, oh, I now remember. So you can see there was just a little bit of a delay. I don't know. I honestly don't know if I like it at this point. It gave me a little bit of a time to I was just about to say that, Andre. It gave me time to move the player, so we may actually want to block the player's movement prior, so they have to watch the panel. You called it on that one. So let's take a look here. And it was on the gun locker here. So before we... So I will say we've been deactivating the character in order to completely lock him down. In order to lock his movements, it's a little bit more complex, especially in Unity. And so we would have to potentially go to the player here, and you can see we have quite a few scripts here. So we have this third-person controller, the character controller itself, and I think between one of these or maybe even both of these, we would have to turn these off. And then we're also going to have to remember to turn them back on. I'll just go ahead and do both, just because, like I said, it could be either one or both at this point. So if we toggle them off here, and that's going to lock that player down, and then we wait, and then at some point we're going to want to toggle these back on. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. I'm going to go up to this close button, and we're going to want to add those in here. And then if you remember right, we need to access another Boolean value. So we're going to go ahead and copy this, set FSM Boolean value, and we're going to do it on the actual gun locker itself. And we're going to want to say, hey, is open is now off. So we're going to go ahead and say, hey, it's back to being closed, and that should update and change our So let's try this again. We're getting close on running out of time here. So this might be the last thing that we do today. I think tomorrow we'll finish the other loadout, the gear loadout. And so now if we press E to open, there was a delay. I couldn't move. Yeah. And so you can see we got the weapon loadout here. Push X. Now we are back out, but as Andre mentioned right before I pushed play, we forgot to change those values to true. And so we copied them over, but we didn't actually set them back to true. Good call. I need you here live, so I don't go straight back into the playtest. And so let's go back to the timeline. I feel like I've been doing this a bunch here. We'll set this to true. Go back to the game. Now we press E. I'm stuck. Can't move. We saw a little bit of the animation of the gates opening. We got the weapons loadout. Press X and bam. Now, I will say you probably didn't notice it on your end, but as soon as I press X, the player started moving forward a little bit. Yeah, appreciate it, Andre. You're a lifesaver. The player had some motion kind of retained in the player controller. He had like forward momentum. And so that's something that we will have to address as well at some point. Which is a little weird because we don't actually have a rigid body on him. But I'll test it out again. It definitely seemed like maybe I walked in. I walked towards here and I pressed E. You can see he stays. Now I'm going to take my hand off the keyboard, and when I press close here, no, he didn't actually move. So maybe it was just a one-time thing. That's good. That saves us some work here. And our text value is changed, and now we can also open the locker. So we'll duplicate that weapons panel concept and we'll apply it to a armored loadout. Now the cool thing, yeah, I was thinking the velocity too, but we don't actually have a rigid body on this character, so I'm kind of curious where he was getting that velocity from in the first place. But we're gonna copy the cage, the weapons panel over to the loadout locker, the armor loadout locker. Those similar concepts. Of course, we'll change some of the graphics and the title and whatnot. But then we're gonna make it so that the player can select what he looks like when he leaves the bunker. And I think that's gonna be kind of fun because this is actually gonna change the look of the player. And I have a couple ideas as far as character prefabs of what kind of armor he's gonna wear. We already have that built in, or not really built in, but we have it available to us in the Cinti Studio assets. I think that'll be pretty fun. And then and so yeah, so then we're going to be able to set all that, and then we're also going to want to keep that setting or that concept for the player, the look of the player once he loads into the apocalyptic city. As far as the guns go, we're not going to quite jump onto adding those guns to the look of the player yet, and I don't think we're going to also set up any actual gun firing mechanics quite yet. That is something that we will do in the future, but as of right now, I don't think we'll do that tomorrow by any means. So that being said, I think we're gonna call it quits for today. I definitely appreciate all the input from you guys, all the feedback. Definitely appreciate you guys being here, and it's definitely exciting work, and definitely stay tuned to more and more live streams. So Thank you, thank you, thank you, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.